Strangely, there are so many, even within the church, who do not believe that to renew politics is part of the church's mission. When church officials praise government policies, government officials welcome such support warmly. But when church officials criticize and denounce government policies, the same people immediately cry out, "Violation of the separation of church and state." But what does the separation of church and state really mean? The Second Vatican Council committed the Catholic Church to the promotion of religious freedom. It proclaimed the right of the person and of communities to social and civil freedom, in religious matters. In order that this freedom may be exercised, no obstacle should be placed in its way. On the other hand, society and the state must not force a person to act against his conscience, or prevent him from acting in conformity with it. Our very own Constitution is a testament to this principle, referring to 3 points on the right to religious freedom, namely, no religion may be established as the official religion of the state, the state may not favor one religion over the others, and the state shall forever allow the free exercise and enjoyment of religion and shall not require any religious test for the exercise of civil and political rights. But if the Church does intervene in politics, it exercises this right and duty in various ways, above all, by teaching moral and religious truths that should guide and transform politics, according to the Gospel. But we must also be aware that, in the light of the Gospel and consistent with the Gospel, there are many political options open to Catholics. The Gospel does not prescribe only one way of being political, nor only one way of political governing, whether monarchical, presidential, parliamentary, or whatever. Justice, peace, and integral development can be pursued through many political ways. That is why there is normally no such thing as the Catholic vote. Nor can particular Catholic groups present their candidates as the Church's candidates. The members of the hierarchy simply set guidelines, to help the laity vote wisely. Under normal circumstances, they do not endorse any particular candidate or party, but leave the laity to vote according to their enlightened and formed consciences. A particular political option becomes obligatory to Catholics only when it is clearly the only one demanded by the Gospel, even more so when it is clarified, and taught authoritatively, by the magisterium. To give more clarity to the Church's incontrovertible or unquestionable involvement in politics, it is best that we come to a common understanding of what the word Church means. Who is the Church? Vatican II defined the Church as the people of God, on a human and religious pilgrimage. And also, the Church as communion, but with hierarchy as a necessary institutional framework. To illustrate, the Church may be likened to a three-legged chair. Its unflinching stability rests on all three legs: the clergy, comprising of the Pope, bishops, priests; the religious, or men and women in consecrated life, in religious orders; and the laity, or the lay faithful. In our learnings, it is the laity endowed with the responsibility of direct participation in politics. The laity exercises this responsibility in various ways: as responsible voters, as advocates in civil society organizations, in political parties, as candidates or members, or outside of a political party, as independent candidates. Hence, the teaching, the direct duty to work for a just ordering of society is proper to the lay faithful. But, through the Pope and bishops, priests, and religious, the laity is formed. Hence, the Church's indirect duty in politics. The foregoing discussions, it is hoped, will set forth the foundation and guidance for action that we all so desperately need, not only for our own sakes but for our children's and our children's children. So how can we change and renew politics? First, is through conversion to new values. There will be no radical change in our political situation unless we all undergo a change of heart, conversion, therefore, in our priorities, in our values. In our society, a high premium is put on power and money over the common good. We need to rid ourselves of the 5 cancers of the soul: arrogance, unforgiveness and blame-shifting, pride that comes at the expense of others, selfishness, self-centeredness, ego, and love of money. All these lead to our indifference to social evils that we freely allow, either by commission, that is by being a party to the system, or by omission because we do not want to get in the way at the expense of jeopardizing our own family and self-interests and preservation. Even our bishops recognize this need for conversion, saying, we need to change our ways too and be true prophets in our day. Only when we are able to rid ourselves of misguided values, can we cultivate patriotism or love of country that our nation sorely lacks. In the scheme things, God's first, country before family, family before self. This is fundamentally the reason why we should love our country. The word love here is primarily taken to mean a purposeful commitment to sacrificial action for the common good, one that overshadows family and self-interests. A genuine love for our country translates to a deep concern for the poor. Many. Politics, indeed, is a medium through which we can love our neighbor and promote justice, peace, and human rights. The second is, pastoral action in the political sphere should take the form of active advocacy. It is a Christian task to work for laws that will bring about genuine prosperity, more equitable distribution of income and wealth, the promotion of the rights of the poor and of indigenous peoples. Everyone should be interested in knowing what bills are being considered by Congress. In solidarity, civil society must articulate their support for laws, policies, and structural changes that will improve our lives in society and our political processes. Each of us must take up our cross, because such active advocacy and lobbying require a long and tedious process. Some examples of political advocacy: the People's Initiative to legislate a national law prohibiting political dynasty, the People's Initiative to legislate a national law abolishing the pork barrel system, in all its names or forms, and the call for passage of a Freedom of Information Act. The Venerable Pope Francis himself said, "For as long as the problems of poverty are not radically addressed by attacking the structural causes of inequality, no solution for the world's problems may be found, or for that matter, to any problem." In our very own predicament as a nation, what does he mean by this? We spoke earlier of the consequences of corruption. The few political advocacy examples just cited are precisely structural measures meant, first and foremost, to combat corruption, which if significantly reduced, can mean more funds for public services, in education, health, housing, judiciary, infrastructure, and other basic services, and economic support for the people. Sustained, this should lead to a more conducive climate for private business, necessary for greater and longer-term jobs creation, resulting to higher government revenue collection, meant for public services. Sustained further, higher government revenue collection should lead to lower taxes, affording businesses to pay workers higher wages, and to the abolition of a whole gamut of consumer taxes, the effect of which is higher disposable income for workers. All these, when flowed back into the economy, makes the economy bigger, generating higher revenue collection for government meant for public services. And finally, government gains the needed moral leverage to renegotiate debt payment terms, the amount of easing of which should directly benefit public services. Just by way of underscoring the connection, the preceding discussions centered on conversion to new values and on the need for active participation of the laity in civil society and political advocacy. Beyond these, organizing for change in the political field is necessary to renew politics and rid it of its evil dimensions. Here, we refer to the laity's deeper involvement in politics, through political parties. What really is a political party? A political party is an organized group of people, with at least roughly or with similar political aims and opinions, that seeks to influence public policy by getting its candidates elected to public office. Why do we have political parties? People get better involved in public life via political parties. Parties allow people to find strength in numbers, to organize, and to identify with a general approach to public questions. In any given election, there may be hundreds of candidates, and it is very difficult, if not impossible, for a voter to judge the individual record and platform of every eligible candidate. Party identification allows a voter to make an informed choice without researching every detail of a campaign. And parties provide a brand identity so that voters have some idea what they are getting when they support a vote for a candidate. Parties rely on their members to raise funds, spread the word about candidates and policies, and encourage others to support the party. In and out of elections, it is therefore crucial to take a long, hard look not only at the individual politicians but more importantly at the political parties they represent. We have a menu of choices. We encourage you to look into each one of these parties. What are their principles? What are their political platforms? Are these parties dedicated to work for the common good of every Filipino? Or are they merely advancing their own interests? In a speech on March 6, 1956, Dwight Eisenhower propounded, "If a political party does not have its foundation in the determination to advance a cause that is right and that is moral, then it is not a political party, it is merely a conspiracy to seize power." We therefore need to be circumspect in our choices. Genuine political parties, thus, are a way to genuine reform. Be part of one. This is what the laity organizing for change in the political field is all about. What about the laity as voters? Change calls for new ways and new methods, including in the way we vote. We need to be good, wise voters. We should do a lot more than show up at the polling station come election day. Casting our ballot is but the end of an entire process, in which we choose our officials. Often, we wait to hear what the candidates will say they will do for us. We need to change this to an awareness of our own aspirations, what we want the candidates to do for us, in terms of specific issues and policies, for instance, the prohibition of political dynasty as a way to genuine political reform, the abolition of the pork barrel system as a way to good fiscal governance, and a Freedom of Information Act as a way to true transparency. We also need to change attitudes of submissiveness and indifference that lead to personality, celebrity, and smorgasbord politics, picking some in one political party and others in other parties, to one of active involvement in nation building through party building. We need to rid ourselves of voting for the lesser evil, or, as if elections is a gambling game, voting for candidates who to our mind will win, on the pretext that we do not want to waste our vote, to understanding that there is nothing wrong with voting, no evil at all. In every choice we make, there can be three choices: yes, no, or abstain. And an unpopular vote sends a very strong message. To summarize, transforming and renewing politics demand conversion to new values. Active participation in the civil society and political advocacy. Organizing for change in the political field. And change in the way we vote. We hope that as lay faithful and citizens, we have been empowered by these learnings. We ask you to impart what you learned, in part, by sharing this material on Christian education on politics. But beyond political education, we extend to you our invitation and ask you now to begin organizing for change in the political field, by beginning to know about the political parties out there and by supporting your party of choice. These are some websites.